Hello, good morning, Miss Maria. How are you today?
Good morning. Very well, thank you.
Thank you for your time and welcome to the following online interview Experts in the Communication Field. To start off, I would like to pose a few questions regarding your expertise and time spent within the communication field as an English teacher. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
With this interview, I would like to get to know you better and increase my knowledge regarding the duties carried out when working in the communication field.
Interesting.
This interview will take around 15 to 20 minutes. Having said so, let's begin. I'm ready when you are.
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. I would like to have a very interesting start with a question for thought.
Mm.
Do you agree that the communication field could be perceived as one of the most important fields nowadays due to the high rate of international individuals living abroad and seeking for a job placement?
Absolutely, but not only because of the fact that there's way more people living abroad and people moving places, but also because of the increase in the way in the means in which we in the ways in which we communicate. You know that with the arrival of social media and with the arrival, of course, of internet, of course, that's not so recent, but with the arrival of new ways of communicating, it's been like really easy, what I would say smooth for people to move more, not just to physically move, like going to abroad for studying or working, but also the moving of communication itself. We've been given so many tools to to be able to be in touch with people, with family, with friends, and we've also been given tremendous tools to find information wherever we are and whenever we want it.
Right, I completely agree. Would you say that with the arrival and constant increase of media platforms and technology, the higher the chances of living abroad seeking for a job, the higher the challenges faced as an expertise in the communication field?
Well, yes, indeed, because you have to be. Um, I mean, you have so many sources. You have so many sources and so many ways of getting information that you have to be a lot more analytical and a lot more prepared to be able to extract
Mm-hmm.
uh, useful and useful information as well as information from good sources, because you know that on internet nowadays you can find lots of information, but only certain amount of it is actually reliable.
Right.
So with this, I think with this easiness or the gathering of information becoming more and more easy,
Mm-hmm.
it also has the negative side of information being so handy that I think some of that information lost credibility.
Credibility.
So I still think that even though um, we have access to lots and lots of information, like way more than we used to have before, we need to be a lot more careful at the same time. A lot more careful with what we read, where we get information from. Well, yes, that basically.
And perhaps this is also a risk for the people working in your same field, since technology has the ability and power to overtake the people that have studied and worked for their actual job placement. In better words, technology might take over physical actual teachers. For instance, let's say we are 10 years from now and teachers are no longer a thing, but more so computers are the replacement for teachers, meaning that the opportunities for um, expertise and professionals within the communication field decreases at a very high rate.
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. Opportunities have and will increase within time, but I don't think that because of one of them increasing, the other one will eventually disappear. If you're saying that due to the fact that we have more technology available now, to that eventually one day, for example, teachers will be replaced by technology. I don't think that will happen. I think roles change, but roles are not 100% replaced. I don't think teachers will be replaced, but rather will have to reinvent themselves. From my own experience, I can tell you that, because if you have a look in history, like back in history, as what was a role for a teacher, well, I can tell you from what I've studied, that teacher had a very dominant role. Let's say in I don't know, a couple of hundred of years ago, but now it's completely different. The you wouldn't see. I don't think there's a place, or there's a place on earth, or a place where you will not see teachers and the class being entirely held by a machine. I don't think that'll happen. What maybe it will, but I don't see it that way. I think that as in many other fields of life, right? As in many other kinds of job, like for engineers, for I don't know, for accountants, in many other fields, things have changed, will continue to change. But if you're talking about, but particularly about communication, um, there will be certainly more changes, and some of them will be more radical than others. But I don't think that will mean that the figure of a role model of a person trespassing knowledge, or moderating a room, or transferring information to their students. I don't think that will be replaced ever.
That's a very interesting perspective, which I had not taken into consideration. However, I strongly believe that there's a limit between technology and people transmitting knowledge. And I hope that the day when technology replaces actual knowledge never comes. Because I don't believe in such thing having the ability and influence over people to replace taught knowledge and transmitted knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that point. And at the same time, if you think about it, there's always like somebody is always behind a source of information, whether it's a newspaper, a radio broadcast, a TV show, behind a computer, right? There's engineers sitting at a computer and increasing the levels of power, the accuracy, adding gadgets, adding apps. So there is always somebody behind. The fact that that technology evolves into a more powerful source of information, of knowledge. I think it's necessary, and it's the way life. I mean, I think it's the way in which humanity is taking this path.
Right.
It's been, I think, what could have, what happened was that we were not ready to the speed at which technology has overpassed or surpassed us, our knowledge, or our knowledge of the world.
Perhaps
Yeah.
you would agree with the increase in technology not increasing at a parallel rate with the human ability of gaining knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that
Yeah.
technology has been speeding up at unimaginable rates, and
Mm-hmm.
humans ourselves, we have not been able to catch up with those because of the rapidness within the
Yeah.
increase.
And if you think about yourself, for example, what happens when you are if you sit at the computer and you need to get information, I don't know, for an exam you're preparing or stuff, and you start surfing the net, and tons of sites and information start coming to you. At a certain point, you are like totally overwhelmed because of all the resources you have, and all all the millions of sites and places where you could eventually get that information from. And what happens, or at least that's what happens to me, I tend to panic. Not, well, I wouldn't say panic, but uh, the flow of information is so overwhelming that you just want to sit and see, okay, what is it that I need? I need to go directly to I mean, you need a good and reliable source of information.
Exactly.
So if you think about it, what would you do? I would go to a professor or to a teacher. Like,
right.
If I seem overwhelmed with the amount of info, I'm not getting, like, rather easily what I need to know to the point where I need to be. I would definitely go find like a human source that could guide me at least on the way, on how and when and what to get.
Effectively. And I guess that takes us to the quote that says, quantity does not mean quality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Having said so, I'd like to continue with our interview, posing another different kind of question. What experience do you have in this communication field?
Well, I've moved from and about uh, private institutions and then tutoring at my place, because we've been moving around for a while. So I have had a chance to have both experiences, right? Working for both private and public institutions, as well as tutoring at home.
Right.
And each of them has their different, like, good sides and not so positive sides, I could say. But in all of them, I've learned a lot.
And working as a teacher in school differs greatly from private tutoring, I believe. What do you think was the biggest challenge you faced during this change?
Yes, of course, it does change dramatically. I think it also depends on where you are at the time of working at certain places. The biggest challenge was maybe at the beginning when I started working for private schools, is getting accustomed to a particular system or to a particular way of handling matters with students, with parents. It can become quite bureaucratic, right? And you lose power in the sense of you can't really um, you can't do exactly 100% as what you would like to do, but rather what the head of the school or the basically the principal wants you to do.
Right.
So the line of thinking, the line of thought comes to you, and through you, it needs to go below to the student. So you lose a little bit of independence and freedom of words, freedom of thought.
I understand.
And maybe that was the biggest challenge.
Would you say that your teaching methods or way of teaching have to necessarily be revised and approved?
I'm sorry?
Would
Can you say that again?
Sure. Would you say that your teaching methods have to be revised and approved by a higher authority within your working environment?
They have to. When you work at a private institutions, they have to, and they will be. They will be, which is fine. I find that. I mean, that's something that should happen, right? As in any other institution, at a health institution, at a political institution, it has to happen. But what I mean is rather it's okay that you are checked. It's okay that you're controlled. But and what I didn't find so fair is that you can't be 100% objective, right? When you are having a debate with your students, especially higher level, right? And that kind of a debate is what I love, when you can get your students to think about what they're reading. The fact that it is okay not to agree 100% all the time with what they're reading, whether they're reading about the Second World War or the Holocaust or I don't know, so many other issues that we faced I mean, talking about the world, for example, in history, world history, as well as in, I don't know, maybe, well, I've taught mainly, I mean, the field of, well, language, and I've also done a little bit of history. And well, when you are when your possibilities or your words have to be like given shape, that's what I find not
Have to
so.
be confined within a
In,
given shape.
yes, when you have to fit your words within the corners of a box,
Right.
or you have to fit um, your ways of thinking within a box. That's where I don't think it's fair. Not because you want to change the student's way of
Mindset.
thinking, but because of you want to get them to think, to read
Well said.
and elaborate and re-elaborate their ideas, and be able to go back and forth and go forward again,
I guess this is
and
just
question themselves and question the world.
exactly. I guess this is a personal side thought, but probably the most rewarding thing about teaching in an international environment is this the mingling and constant blending of different perspectives and thoughts upon a either controversial topic or different topics. Would you agree with that?
200%.
Absolutely. All right.
I think what makes it interesting is also what makes it challenging, right?
Definitely.
Because in some places, it can get really, really challenging. That's if you're teaching in the Middle East, or if you're teaching, I don't know, in a country in Africa, or in a place where women have very little power or very little voice. But that's also what makes it really, really challenging, and empowers yourself to be on the side of good teaching, let's say,
In an
or to be a
international
good communicator.
definitely. And I also believe that an international environment can be seen as an area for rebellious personalities trying to speak up their thoughts and create a revolution, whereas some people may perceive an international environment as a place with a greater window for creative minds, opportunities seeking to be brought up. I guess it depends on the type of environment people were raised upon.
I think I think it's a little bit of both.
Right.
You can get both sides.
Definitely.
Yes, in both an international and a non-international.
Going back to your experience as a teacher, what are some of your qualities as a teacher, if you believe you have them? If you believe you have qualities.
Of course, I do. Well, I think I'm open-minded. I'm always ready to listen. I'm a very good listener. I like to. I think most of the good communication uh, lies on the possibility of really listening to what people say, to what kids say, to what adults say, right? Because if you don't listen, there's no opportunity of resolving conflict, right? If you're always trying to make your points or your thoughts to be the ones that are right, it is very difficult. I think, and it's very frustrating to the other side of the line, let's say.
I would imagine.
Yeah. So um, I'm versatile. I think I can. I'm flexible. I'm flexible. What I think of my thoughts, I'm open to new ideas, to new um, ways of reasoning. I mean, the fact that I've had the same way of thinking to a certain extent about, I don't know, the Holocaust, or I don't know, a certain politician. It doesn't mean that if somebody comes with nice, very well supported arguments, it doesn't mean that I might not change my mind, because things change, the world changes. History doesn't change, but it depends on who tells you the story. Is the way in which you will perceive the story as true or not so true, after all. And I'm patient. I am patient, and most of all, I believe that all of us have a tremendous potential to do different things, but we all do. I believe in students. I believe they can all excel at some point, at some field.
in their life.
So I strongly believe in them, in all of them.
And I guess
And
that's
yeah,
a very important feature within a teacher. If you're not showing through examples such as listening, being a good advisor, um, trying to come up with solutions, and letting your students know that you will always have time for their different perspectives and thoughts upon a topic, that does play a role in how your students or colleagues perceive you as a teacher or as someone working within the communication field. If I were to, as a student, if I were to have a teacher who does not let me voice my opinion or always contradicts everything I say, then my experience in an international environment would be certainly very different to any experience regarding your students per se.
exactly. And another interesting thing is, or good thing that I think a good communicator should have, is the ability to say, to to utter himself, um, to be seen as an imperfect human being, right? To say,
Right.
I don't know is okay. We don't know all the answers. We don't have all the answers.
And that
None
takes
of us do.
courage. Saying I do not know something takes a lot of courage. I believe
It
that
does.
nowadays the person that does not know something or is unsure about a specific topic is more so underestimated, perhaps seen as the
Hmm.
weak one, whereas they are actually being the strongest one or the the courageous one out of a group of people that pretend to know the answer to everything.
I always tell my kids, no questions are silly, because I really believe that if you don't know the answer, if you don't know the answer, it's because you have a question, you have a doubt, and if you do have a doubt, it's not silly, right?
And that means you're eager to learn, right?
Yes, absolutely. I always encourage my students to ask questions.
I strongly believe so. Well, this interview has resulted in a very interesting way. I didn't think we would get such creative and well built answers. However, I'd like to start to conclude our fantastic interview, if I would say. Last question. Working in a field where cultural differences and even boundaries are common, how does this influence or affect your job in a small scale? At a small scale.
I was giving you before the example of working in a Muslim country,
Hmm.
that affects directly the consequences you could face for showing or not showing something that you're supposed to, as opposed to other cultures where you could say they are more open.
Hmm.
This is one where you cannot. There are certain things you cannot say or do or teach, which which you get. I mean, to which you get used to, but in the beginning it can be really shocking because you
Hmm.
feel your rights or your thoughts or your knowledge of the world somehow kept inside a cage, and you cannot
Contained.
um, speak out. So that I would say was was what shocked me the most at the beginning. Then,
Hmm.
as I told you, you understand, and as you know, and if you want to, you know a little bit more about the culture and the way they think and why they think that way. And of course, if you are respectful, you would accommodate, right? It doesn't mean you have to leave all the things you know or the things you think behind. You just keep them like inside a box for when you are able to use
To
them
show
again.
them or use
But
them.
that I would say is the most
Challenging.
um, yes, challenging or shocking
Hmm.
thing if you put it in an everyday life perspective
That's
as a
very
teacher,
interesting.
right?
That's very interesting.
Because to me, like opening a book and and and, and see that lots of pages of world history had been torn
Ripped
apart,
off.
that was a bit of a shock.
I would imagine that's quite a shock, especially for a teacher. coming and
Yes.
having lived in various international environments. All right, Miss Maria. I think that this interview has definitely given me a deep insight about what it is like to live and work within an international environment, and also the prospective outcomes and lessons that you have acquired as a teacher. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm looking forward for the next interview.
Thank you. Thank you so